always saying this, and I'll say it again, that as Africans, we must be careful that when we think that we're Africans, and yet we are Europeans. In which way? That we are Africans in color and in complexion. But when it comes to our software and our ideologies, in terms of the way we process our thoughts, if that process remains European and colonized, no matter how much freedom you give to an African child, they will walk back right into the colonial prison, and where they are going to try and make sense and think in the box and think outside of the box. And all those two ideologies don't work for me. Burn the box and think. So number one, you have to build an ideology, a framework of thinking. And within the ideology, I want to submit that Ubuntu is a greater platform, it's a greater history that we have. The quality of our own understanding, our epistemologies, our history, and the way in which we interpret our realities. Who is my neighbor? Who is my friend? How do I live with others? How do I treat others? And etc. That ideology on its own. America works on the great I, the great American dream, which I can achieve. Europe works on machinery, replace people with machines. The East, which works with the spirituality, spirituality in whatever way they use it. But the South, which is Africa and below, we work on social issues. If I am not succeeding, you are not succeeding. If I'm not happy, you cannot be happy. Therefore, you find that the way in which we deal with our issues is always community-based, it's always communal, and it's always societal. Now, when you take the great I of the European and the Americans, the I, the machinery of Europe, and you bring the products of China, and then you push them to the African child who works in a communal space, you may find that you are actually forcing the African child to behave like those that are external to himself and herself, without necessarily describing and explaining herself as she needs to explain. So firstly, it's ideology. Secondly, you need to understand militarization. Militarization, how do you build a military base? How do you build military intelligence and knowledge to protect your ideology? And number three, then you build what we call the economic systems. Economic systems. Create businesses that are not in the echelons of power. Create businesses that are directly linked to the community. Create businesses, create churches, create institutions, create schools, create industries, create factories, create services that link directly with the people, and try to do a preferential procurement process where you give priority to your people first. Your people must come first if you are to build a society. It will not be well that the local people would struggle and suffer, and the foreigners that are amongst them are enjoying the benefits and while the foreigners are actually having fun, the local people are suffering. Therefore, in your economic policies, you need to develop a deliberate, pro-black policy that says first priority to procurement must be black. First priority to manufacturing must be black. First priority to business must be black. Therefore, if you're a government, if you're an institution, what you do is that your labor must be biased. Your buying must be biased. Your contracting must be biased. Yes, I know you want to raise issues of quality and etc. That's where training and development comes in. But if you are to build a sustainable society, you need an ideological framework from which you think from. And from the ideology, build your military system around that. Number three, build then an economic system that speaks to your economics, that speaks to your ideology. And with the economic issues that you have, you can actually use your money to advance your ideologies, to advance your militarization, and to advance your ideologies. Now, what makes Karl Marx and what makes the Eastern and the Westerners progressives was they've developed their machinery and their information education into books, into frameworks, into institutions. And then the black people go to these institutions to learn the ways of the West. And then they come back to Africa and then they force these things on an African. So on the top side, you need to have developed a system, ideology. From ideology, you build the military. Military economics does not matter. You can interchange them, does not matter. You can do ideology first, then economics. Then you build your military base around that. And then number four, you build political relationships, political relationships. This speaks to domestic policy. This also speaks to external policy. How do you relate with each other politically in the country? Because you're capable of having a civil war. How do you work with each other as countries to make a continent? Because you need an environment, a continental environment to function as a business. And thirdly, how do you deal with the rest of the world? And those policies are not cut in stone. The way you deal with the East might be slightly different from the way you deal with the North, and different from the way you deal with the West. America,